G'day and welcome to the Hunters Campfire Podcast. My name's Mark and along with good mate Ian, we're here to help with all things hunting. If you're looking to start but don't know where to begin, you want to make the most of your next trip away or even plan that hunt of a lifetime, we've got something for you. You'll find our podcasts on Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon and plenty of others. And if you want more, head over to our YouTube channel, The Hunters Campfire, where we have plenty of how-to and hunting videos along with the full video production of every podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and good hunting.
Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Hunters podcast.
Oh, doing well.
Hunters, no. See, this is where you can't just throw it straight at me.
Where are you?
Welcome everybody. I will introduce you to my good friends, Jono, Mark and Ian. They threw me under the bus as we joined here, and I'll throw it back over to the more capable people than me.
Good job, mate. Well, just so you know, because you're a long-time listener, we are the Hunters Campfire podcast.
I know.
Very good. Yes, we did throw you not under the bus, but on the spot for sure. So yes, welcome everybody.
That was one big buzz.
Looking forward to seeing this one come out.
That's right.
So yes, we're back. We're having another episode, and we're going to talk about a few different things that we've been doing, where we've been inviting some of our listeners along. And John Hendo, as we call him here, has come on a couple of our trips recently. So good to have him on the podcast. Outside of the wool shed way up in Maybole. So it's with a grader unwashed back there, but a little bit more clean and tidy. And yeah, it would be great to talk a little bit about what we got up to out there, your experience as a reasonably new hunter coming along with the crew. And then, of course, you joined us at Fraser.
Yep.
That was an easy one, given that you and I have been going there for quite some time now, over the last 5 or 6 years, but different trip every time we go, so we might cover that off and talk about a bit of the gear that we use. So, again, welcome. Thanks for joining us, Hendo, and leading us into episode number... Can't remember what it is. Welcome.
Thanks for inviting me, guys. It's good to finally jump on one of these. I've been listening since probably day one. So,
and you can just tell how the professionalism has increased exponentially since we started.
Hey, when you give me 5 seconds to actually go, okay, you're going to do the introduction now, and I figure you're joking, and then you actually say, no, it's true.
Yeah, it's true.
You can throw the best of it, right? So,
yeah, we'll let you do the outro, so you can think about that for now.
Cool.
Very good. Oh, well, let's lead off.
I'm just taking off my socks. I'm not having a heart attack. I'm just taking off my socks.
Very good. We're stacking up a few recordings as we go, right? So
yeah.
Around the grounds will be a little bit the same as last time. There's probably not a lot happened in the last.
You don't have to tell people that. They don't know that we only did one a couple of days ago. They don't know.
2 days ago. We've got so many people looking to come on that we've got to just keep punching them out. It's great.
I don't know that. So,
You've been out.
I've been buying stuff. I haven't been out much. I've got a couple of things happening that's holding me up at home. But moving on past that, I've bought myself a new torch. For those who know me, I have a torch and knife fetish, and I've decided that fetishes are good, and I'm keeping it. So this is the new Olight. I think they even see that.
You describe its shape for the listeners.
That's right. You buy these really expensive torches and you get these little rubber bands. It's like, when you buy that $2,000 rifle and they give you a sticker and you get all excited by the sticker. So
true.
Yeah, it is. I've just outlaid $5,000 for a Sego rifle. Look,
yeah,
but they gave me a sticker.
My new DJI sticker from my new action camera.
There's my Yeti stickers up there with the $400 esky. I got a sticker out of it.
Hey, I got
it.
Yeah.
So yes, I bought the Marauder Mini Olight, and it is incredibly bright, and I really like it. And
that's the MIDI, is it?
This is the mini. So
Mini.
there's a bigger. This is the mini, and so yeah, it's incredibly bright. It has a switch that switches straight from beam to spot. So it's actually I actually think it's very well designed. It's very easy to use. If you haven't used the iLights before, they're USB charged. They've got a nice little magnetic charger that goes on there. That's my latest purchase. So I'm just playing with that, And
Is it heavy?
It's pretty chunky.
It's
It's
alloy,
not
is it?
something. It's
Ever
not
seen
something
alloy?
you carry in your backpack. It's just in case you.
You should loan that to
In
Ian
case
next
you're
time he
in
goes
one of the-
hunting for his spotlighting, because he
He
likes to shoot things under spotlight.
Yeah.
Listen to it.
Well, this would be very, very good for spotlighting deer. If that's how you roll, this would be a very
That's
good
definitely
option.
how Ian rolls.
It
Yes.
might be a bit hard. It might be a bit hard. You'd have to kind of figure out how to hold it, and because there's no.
He'll get some tape
Simple
and tape it to the
amount.
barrel or something.
But
I need to rebut. Can everyone be quiet?
Okay, sure.
Just after dark, my good friend Jono, who'd shot and left the deer because he couldn't find it, came over to where we were and enlisted our help with our torches to go back and find said buck. So it's probably a good idea to have these.
I'm not doubting the abilities of a torch, but I did not shoot mine under torch. It was still light when I shot mine.
Still light when I shot mine.
Yeah, it was light illuminated by a torch. Yes.
Well, it was still
Maybe
light
some
somewhere. It was light in WA. So
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
That's right.
I mean, semantic. So back to the torch, Mark. It's an alloy, it's USB charged.
it's
so it's not
USB
replaceable battery.
charged. This one actually has a replaceable battery, so you can, if it does
Like
go,
an
it's just a.
How
It's
long's it
just
last?
I haven't run it at full pelt because they do really burn up power, man, because it's so
How-
bright.
How is it charged now?
Yep.
Can you turn it on and just leave it on? Just leave it there.
Okay, I'll run
Well-
up the full and listen.
Put it under your chin.
Shush.
Got a vibration, does it?
Yeah, it
phone.
does. It's got like your phone.
Tickle me, Mark. Tickle me.
It tells you up to full power.
That's just using more battery,
yeah,
though.
look at you. Is that the torch?
Yeah, it's the
No,
torch
it's cool.
doing it.
Was Mark going? Like he's
You know,
got a-
In fact, if you were spotlighting with it, you could maybe call the deer in. There you go. How's that?
I don't know what
It's
deer
both-
you call in, but
Well, no, I've never spotlighted deer, so I wouldn't know. But
ask
then
Ian, he'll
again-
teach you.
Oh, shit.
yeah, I'm going to put it here.
You put it there under your chin. That'll make
Yeah.
it really spooky. And you can turn your
I
lights
might
off
have
behind.
it over here somewhere.
Turn your room lights off, and then we'll know what's going on with it.
Hey, that's an idea.
There we
No,
go.
turn the lights off, Mark.
I have.
Only.
Pretty
Okay,
bright torch.
that's flood.
All right. Let's see how long it lasts.
I'll put that there.
That's pretty
we'll see
good.
how long
All
it
right,
goes.
so it's-
If the monitors catch on fire, it has a heat sink issue.
we need to give Hendo another job. Can you update the listeners as the brightness dulls? Because it's no good on Podbean.
So
Or
this
the
is
other-
what you
So, guys, those listening, is in ridiculously bright in this room. I've turned the light off, and you wouldn't know. And we're running the O-light at full power to see how long it dims out. I think it's at like 7,000 lumens at the moment, some ridiculous number like that.
Happy days.
Mm.
In other news,
In other than
in our last podcast, we set ourselves a challenge to launch a website. And guess what? It's launched.
It's done. It's live.
It's up. There's some bugs. People are telling us. But that's
Hey.
okay. We're hacks.
that's right. I have to move this a little bit, otherwise it's blinding me.
You can't even tell your lights are off. That's ridiculous.
I'll put it over there.
Pretty
There you
impressive.
can see. Look, there you go.
We can actually see it.
It's
Yeah.
in shot. There we go. We'll put it over there.
How can you see it?
Can I give some user feedback from the website?
No.
Oh, yeah. Go. Yes.
I actually think the pack idea, where you show what you have in individual packs, is awesome. I found that
That's my
really
idea.
interesting. Obviously, I've known Ian for a while, and I know what he carries, but it was really interesting to see how that compares to like Mark and Jono. So, just as some off the cuff sort of feedback, I thought that was pretty cool.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
mate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you notice that each one of those individual pictures was clickable?
Yes, actually, I managed to accidentally click on one, and that was good because it gives you an idea of some more details, but also a bit of an idea of pricing.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
thought
we've
that
tried
was
to
helpful.
link, in fact, not just tried, we have linked every single product on the website to somewhere you can go and buy it. Some of that's to the vendor, some of it's just to random places that we go shopping for stuff. You'll know on my butchering kit that I've listed in there, we all use different game bags. Some of us use branded game bags. There's probably a reason for buying those things, but I just go to the butcher supply and buy a ham bag. So it's a good size. It can chuck a quarter in, and I've just linked it up to an online butcher supply that I get them from. So it's not feeding us; it's just generally giving everyone information on where to go and get it. And we've had that many people contact us saying, "What do you have in your pack?" Well, now you can go and have a look. Now it's not everything. There'll be bits and pieces floating around, half-eaten Mars bars and whatever else. I didn't stick them on there, but I put the useful stuff up for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Definitely.
it's like a day pack, so we'll expand it over time to over, tents and things like that as well, and keep expanding it. And as Ian said, it either links to some things. It has to link back to the suppliers. For instance, rifles, you can't buy them online, so it's got links back. Some link back to places where you can directly buy them, like Amazon, and some link back directly to the manufacturer, like the socks that I buy from the Nundle Mill. So it links back to those guys. So yeah, it's it gives you an idea where you can buy them, or at least where you can look for them.
I think for someone like me who loves to get out but doesn't get out anywhere near as much as I'd like, you just never know, right? And it just prompts some of those sorts of things going, oh shit, that's where I can buy it. Oh, sorry, is swearing allowed on this podcast?
Well, if it isn't, it's too late now.
Okay. But I think some of that sort of stuff's really good. Just, I don't know, just the questions you don't know who to ask when it's there visually in front of you, to know what, hopefully take an animal, what you need as sort of a bare minimums.
Yeah. Cool.
Very
Good
cool.
feedback.
I'm glad it's useful.
Yeah, we're getting quite a few visits to it now. People obviously that have been listening in, they're getting hold of it and they're having a look around. So it's good to see people having a look. Send us the feedback if there's stuff on there that you want to see added. We're more than happy to add it. There'll be some places to interact shortly, and additional things as we grow it out. So it's early stages, but I think it's a good start.
Yeah, and we want to put a community page on there as well. That is not everyone that we engage with. We work with, like we work with Beretta and that, but there's a number of other people out there that we just have relationships with. Hook and Bone, guys like that. Just want to promote them while we're there. And look, SSAA have been a really big supporter of us. They always support our socials, so we want to put them there as well. So it's about recognising those who not only back us like Beretta, but also those who are fans or supporters of us as well.
Yeah. The last thing that I'll mention is one of the pages that you'll see is featured products, and featured product after this podcast will now have an Olight torch. It's something we've discussed on the podcast. We will put it up on the featured page so that you can go and have a look at it yourself, find where to get it if you want to. And we're always discussing
good that as well.
Benchmade
knives. Oh yeah, far out. The fetish rolls on.
Benchmade knives.
So that's good. Anyway, enough on the website. Is there anything else we want to cover off before we hook into some of the experiences we've been having, dragging John out into the wilds?
No, I think we're pretty good. Let's do it. Let's go. Let's put John on the spot again.
Excellent.
Be more prepared now, guys. It's all
we did
good.
say this wasn't going to be a Hendo interview, but it's turning out it's going to be that way.
Why not?
So obviously you're reasonably new to hunting, and you've been out once or twice with us through the Australian Deer Association.
Correct.
Darling Downs branch that we belong to, that you've belonged to. And when we put the slam out, one of the options was for you to come out to the slam and participate in the competition that we were putting together, which was a hell of a lot of fun. Heading into that weekend, we started the banter a little bit early, which put a bit of pressure on everyone. How did you enjoy that experience? It was a hell of a lot of fun.
The bandit before or the whole thing? Because that's a
Well,
big...
the bandit before, but the lead up into it, and I guess your experiences or your experience in hunting leading up to the weekend and expectations, I guess.
I didn't have any specific expectations because I've not been to that block, but I had been to other blocks in that sort of general area, so I kind of knew what to expect. But it's like anything when you don't get to do it, but you love it. I probably didn't even sleep the night before we headed out. It's just, it doesn't matter if you're 45 or, 14, you get excited. Just the chance to go out with a bunch of good guys, do something you love in a pretty cool location. So for me, it was an awesome experience. I think the idea of having the two teams and that both competition but also camaraderie was awesome. I mean, I don't know what it came like across on the actual videos. I'm a bit biased. I love them, but it was so much fun in the moment. I mean, the Zolios, you guys texting back, and you guys setting up fake heads in the car window, and that sort of stuff.
That was a good idea. That was awesome.
Right, because we'd busted all day and we'd had a good day, but to come back up and think we'd been lost, that was a bit harsh. But I mean, I still talk about the story. I probably talked about it more still, even though we went to Fraser, probably talked about the hunting trip a little bit more recently because it's just something I don't get to do as much. I love the cold. It was
nice
really cold.
It was very cold.
Johnny and Ian with his
electric
what were they?
electric
Throw
blankets.
rugs, electric blankets. Yeah. I think getting to meet someone else as well, because I met you guys a little bit before, but never met Rowan. He fitted into the group really, really well. Can't play rock, paper, scissors shit, but otherwise, it was really good. I mean, I don't know what more I can say, but, it was good to have, obviously Ian, who's done a lot more of this than I have, been able to, take lead and give me some pointers as we went around. Certainly a lot of animals on that
crazy,
block,
wasn't it?
Pigs and more pigs. I couldn't believe how many pigs. I think the first animals we saw were pigs in probably 40 minutes after we sort of went out the first morning, and we'd knocked one over, right? So it was a tough block in ways, but it was big enough, I think, to hold the two groups without any sort of issues. You could probably maybe run 3 pairs on there, but 2 was awesome.
I think if you ran 3, it'd be similar to the other block that we go to, that you have to manage it a lot.
I think I think
better.
2 pairs was good. I think you had significant space and you had space to move around as well. So if the wind changed, you had options. Where I think the other block for Operation Venison, you didn't have many options. You had your piece of ground, and if the wind was wrong, you had nowhere else to go because otherwise you're trespassing.
Well, you did. You got to cross into your other guys.
Oh, here we go again. But that shows that you had no other options. Where I think on the slam block, you actually had options. You had numerous places you could go to.
Like we were resting.
Correct. Whereas
space.
with Operation Venison, you couldn't really do that. You had to leave half the block. That was it. You only had a small little area that you could focus on. And unfortunately, the deer were mainly in that one area. So if you went up there and sent it up, that was it. It was done for the day.
Yeah. The other thing I know we talked about a little bit was how we changed tactics, changing game species. You knew pigs were going to be there the whole time. We didn't know that when we started, right? So knocking a pig over early, we were like, yeah, fine, we got a pig, that's great, and off we went to chase goats and deer. But in reality, we probably could have used the time better. When we go back next time, knowing the volume of pigs that are there, that was really early light and probably blew a lot of chances to chase the goats that we were hearing in the background. They would have gone to cover. So they're things that you learn about the block as you go. But yeah, it was quite interesting switching from, knowing that you need to be able to take a deer down, and you've only got first and last light for that. So reserving that time for the deer and chasing the other animals during the day became tactics that I hadn't really considered before we got there, but we put a lot of thought into them as the weekend
We had
progressed.
I was going to say we had very different experiences though, considering it wasn't a huge block. We saw tons of pigs, but we saw so many goats. We saw crazy numbers of goats, and we were hunting. Oh, and deer, yeah. But the number of goats we saw on the first morning, we saw huge mobs. And I know you were chasing them, you could hear them, but we saw them. And I showed you, you've seen the footage on the opposite hillside. There was just goats everywhere where you didn't have the same experience, but we were hunting in very, very similar areas. Certainly, we saw a lot more deer than you did. We didn't connect with one. We had numerous opportunities, but we didn't connect. But they were certainly there. We didn't have to change tactics. We just had to be in the right place at the right time, I think.
Watching your video was really interesting to see that other side of it, because when we got back at lunchtime and stuff like that, to hear what you were talking about, like you said, it was very different. We saw that many pigs, and we followed a lot of around that we could hear in terms of goats and stuff like that. But yeah, I think you saw
huge mobs.
Heaps more. I mean, we saw one good group that we got one out of, but not like what you were saying.
Interesting time. From a new hunter's perspective, I know you've been acquiring gear for a couple of years. Things come on special. You've been picking up bits and pieces. Making a phone call, finding out what you should be putting on the shopping list, things like that. Did you have any major gear dramas?
No dramas, but this was the first time taking out the new pack, and the difference of a well-fitted, properly supported pack for your comfort when you're walking up big hills. Invest the money. That's all I can say. I'm not brand specific or anything like that, but just the difference to be able to get around with the previous pack I had was huge. I would be having sore shoulders, stuff would be slipping. That new pack from Hunter's Element was a huge difference to what I previously been wearing. So,
that was which pack was that?
Boundary.
Boundary. Yeah. And certainly more storage. The other thing I probably learnt from previous hunts, I used to take way too much stuff. Because you're really coming back to camp at lunchtime, and the car's not that far away, so you don't really need a jet boil and 3 days worth of food.
You say that, but a coffee on the side of the hill is pretty good.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a time and a place, but I still would have packed way too many. And same with just layers of clothing. It's freezing in the morning, but just know that you're going to be cold for the first 10 minutes. Bust your ass up a hill, and you'll be nice and warm. I remember it was still, it's before 7 o'clock, and I think it was -1 or maybe 1 degrees. I was down a t-shirt, and not having to worry about all those layers and stuff like that. The pack was good. So, a few of those little things that I learnt that you guys probably take for granted. But it's all about just getting out there and trying and working when you're uncomfortable and how you can fix it.
Good point.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it all looks good on the shelf, or it all looks good on the on the website. You've got to put it into practice, and what you like all of us, you find over the years that you kind of increase in quality and decrease in content. You get smaller, lighter, more efficient gear. Costs more, but it does what you want it to do so much better than and it's there's less of it. So things right through things from what kind of knives you take and all that kind of stuff. You figure out what works and what doesn't, and you take what works and what doesn't. You either give it away or sell away or something like that.
Yeah.
So I've got a whole shed full of stuff that doesn't work.
So that was the slam experience. Looking forward to doing it again. I know we've tried to rebook the block. We'll do it again and potentially get some other people to come along as well. We'll see how it goes. But it was a really good experience. It was good for John and I to have a couple of new fellas coming with us as well. It changed our experience completely. Our rifles were on our packs. You guys were front and center to start with. I don't know if I was lucky or unlucky. No, I was definitely unlucky. you had a siesta for one of the sessions, so I got to take the rifle off the pack and be first shooter. But it was good to guide and share the experience, and just pass on some of the knowledge that we've gained over the years. And it was good that pretty much other than the fact that I think you dehydrated yourself, didn't you, on the first day? It was a lesson to learn that even though it's cold, you still need to drink.
And that's the thing, right? You think you're drinking enough. I was never hot, and I just, obviously didn't drink enough. Probably to be too excited first morning. These things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So we all learn these things.
Hmm.
But that was that one, and thanks for coming along. Made it a really great weekend, and look forward to doing it again.
Yeah, well, I was going to say before we on that one, I mean, the Slam was such a good weekend, and there was so much banter going on backwards and forwards with the whole rock, paper, scissors and everything else that banter still continues to this day. We still have a Facebook group chat, and we're still sending shit backwards and forwards and jokes and memes and all the rest of it. So that shows you how a weekend like that can really bring, hunters, new hunters, experienced hunters together and just share a common, I suppose, bond. And just really get along, and it still continues to this day that we actually had such an awesome weekend, and we can continue that.
Yeah, I mean, we were messaging everyone last night, and I think Rowan gets a hard time sometimes.
Every time,
I know, but Facebook is the the meme generator that just keeps on giving when you with some of that sort of stuff. So yeah, and that's where I hope we can get together and do Slam 2020,
Slam 2.0,
whatever it be, something like that. 2.0, because it'd be great to do the same block because like I think Ian said, we learnt so much about that block and where to go. You do it again, you walk past the pigs that first morning, for example, and try to hunt one of the other species because you're going to get it. Like we thought we were magic because we found pigs in 40 minutes.
Well, I mean, on the last morning we were trying to catch pigs by hand because there were so many and you could get that close to them that we just thought, let's make it challenging. And try and catch them by hand. We got pretty close to them, but didn't catch one. But there was just ridiculous numbers of pigs. Mark, I don't think you should come to that block, mate. You'll run out of ammo.
Who was trying to catch a pig up there in the Northern Territory? Remember we came across that? I spotted that little...
that little grunter.
I saw that. Remember we came up that waterhole and went, oh, look. Yeah. And there's a little pig.
The first big game we saw in the Northern Territory.
First pig.
That was Matt. Matt trying to catch. Well, Matt was going to catch it.
Matt, that's right. And then someone whacked it with a 9.3, didn't they?
Yeah.
He got blown up. That's right. I remember. We were watching him trying stalk in on that pig.
You could certainly do that at this block. That's for
sure.
Yeah.
Oh, you could. Yeah, but I mean, and then there's the other thing is next season
it could be
completely different. Yeah. Might be. I mean, I've never seen it dry up there. It's always wet underfoot. And we were lucky that we had a bit of heat to get the cars back up the hill, because committing the cars to the hill on the first morning,
that was scary.
They were going down without the wheels turning. They were just going.
Yeah.
So we were well committed, but who knows what next year will bring? Could be a completely different thing, and probably be good for Ryan to get a couple of shots away and be successful to kick his weekend.
A larger rifle as well.
Yeah, that's right. We'll see how it goes.
I think it was weighed a ton. So
what was
Parker Hale 270.
It was a 270. It was a varmint.
What do you reckon it weighed?
Probably 4.5, 5 kilos, probably. Yeah, it was heavy varmint barrel, Parker Hale 270, with a heavy wooden stock on it. And he was trying to shoot it off hand.
So it was an older style
it
rifle.
was an uncle's rifle or something that he inherited.
Yeah, probably comp rifle or something like that by the sound of it.
Every bit of video footage, he was like this to counterbalance the weight. It was.
Plus, he had some feed issues trying to get rounds up. The first round just wouldn't feed properly. It was doesn't lend well to quick shots.
Never mind. Let's talk about Fraser.
Do it.
Lead away.
Fishing mecca.
Well, it wasn't really a mecca this year compared to last year. I thought it was
compared to last
really
year.
Well,
we still did okay for the amount of fishing we did compared to balancing it with family stuff. I think we did okay. I would
Yeah,
have
so
loved.
so Fraser for us is sort of the end of the hunting season for the year. Or even though we'll still pop out and go and do something, probably go to Severn or out to Pilliga or something like that. But it's the end of, really for me anyway, it's the end of chasing deer for the season, and it's a good opportunity to invite a few people out, take the families, and go and have a good week away. We're lucky enough to be able to take a few base camps. So we had 3 campers come along, so you can set up a pretty good spot. We were going this year at a time, so it was school holidays. We thought it was going to be crazy busy. They'd canned a bunch of the camping zones because of dingo activity. So we just thought that was just going to condense all the people to, the available locations. But yet again, it surprised me. The place was, well, I'm not going to say it was empty, but it was certainly quiet, wasn't it?
I think every year we've gone past Orchard, it's always been pretty quiet. I think it's just the nature of, it's a fair way up there. I mean, yes, there was going to be less people always with not as many campsites available. But I've really fallen in love with that top part of the island compared to, down below, really.
Yeah. The fact that you've got to get up over an Indian Head, which is not a major challenge, to be honest. It's it's nothing really. If you've got your tire pressures and those sorts of things right, you just skip up over that hill. Bit different when you're towing a camper trailer or a caravan, but still not that difficult. But like you say, you've got to get past that. You've got to go past Orchard Beach Township, and then we're into Zone 8, which is the next stretch of beach on the way up. It's that much further that more than 50% of the traffic, I believe, is gone. If you camp down on the main beach before Indian Head, you've just got cars going back and forwards along the beach,
crazy
the main
busy
highway.
along there.
And it's really hard to manage young kids, that want to run down to the surf and have a good time, build sandcastles, and then, there's people that don't want to slow down,
Well, I think
below 80 kilometres an hour.
You remember the first year we stayed, it was probably 2018 at Dundubra.
Yep.
We stayed there because you had your young boy, who was, what, 1?
Nearly 1, yeah.
And we wanted an area which we had dingo-proof fences and stuff like that. But that meant a lot of the fishing we were doing at that front area. And it's an 80k highway. And it was extraordinarily busy. We had to really watch, and we probably had, 10, 12 kids that year. We had to make sure we really watched it. But Orchard, you still would do the same up in Zone 8, but nowhere near as much.
No, which makes it a really family-friendly area. And also Orchard Beach itself, it's a nice secluded bay. The tide, when it runs out, leaves, a nice tidal pool that the kids can swim in. It's, up to their chests. It's pretty safe. It's good fishing if you've got the right tides and you've got the right currents, I guess. But it's just a really good spot to go. If anyone's considering going up that way, I highly recommend going that little bit further and just having it quiet. Of course, then there's Orchard Beach itself. There's a pub and a shop, and you can get ice creams and top-ups for things for camping and all of that sort of stuff. It's just nice to have convenient fuel.
Water
as well. Water. Yeah, all of that stuff. So, it just takes the edge off having to carry every little thing with you when you go up there. So that's really good. So, yeah, I recommend that. And then it's a good spot to be able to disappear and go and do day trips. If you're taking kids up there and you're not just doing the fishing thing, it's not difficult to get up over Nagala and up to Sandy Cape, and it's not hard to get back down to the wrecks and Champagne Pools and all of the good things that kids want to do. So, yeah, it's good. And I don't think anyone really needs to be concerned about whether they can or can't get up over Nagala Rocks. It's infamous, right? It's the thing that, in Skip Point, there's plenty of people there with GoPros and phones and liking to put you on Facebook. But, you're heading over that in a fairly stock Prado.
100% stock Prado.
Took you everywhere.
Yeah, oh, mate, and easily. Right tire pressure is probably the most important thing. But stock Prado did everything without a drama. I think because some of the utes probably with a fancier ute would probably have more issues with out the weight on the back axle. So we certainly did.
Yeah, I mean, Mick took that was his first trip to Fraser. He's never been before, and he had a GWM Cannon, I think he's got. It's the second time he's driven on the beach. We did a quick recce to Bribey one day, and he got stuck. And his is stock. He's got the stock wheels, stock tires. He did pretty well. I mean, I know he got stuck coming back over Nagala, but on the way through to Sandy Cape, he didn't get stuck. He went straight through. So it just shows you don't need a $200,000 Land Cruiser with everything on it. If your tire pressures are right and I don't know how to drive it, you're going to get through.
Yeah.
And when you got stuck, what did you have to winch him out, or you dig him out, or what stuck? What did stuck mean?
It's a bit of pointing and laughing first, and his daughter taking photos.
Other than the fact that you go, you drive a Japanese, Chinese trapper, and all that stuff that has to happen. When you actually get to the recovery point, what was the?
There were guys up there with recovery boards, and they just basically dug the wheels out. And I mean, he was bogged up to the axles. We didn't go up and look. We stayed on the beach and laughed, basically.
Had another beer.
So you didn't.
There were enough people up there to help them. There were people trying to get them through. So yeah, they got the recovery boards out and basically dug some holes, and he basically managed to reverse out, and then he got stuck again on the beach. And then we just drove around him and went up through. But no, look, he did really, really well for his second time ever driving on the beach. He did well. Really, really, really. Thanks.
Yeah, it wasn't a scenario where you could just take your car up and drag someone back. There are people coming both directions. You've got to be mindful of all of that. And there was a crew of people there that they just made a day of helping people out, which was fantastic. It was old mate Steve.
That's it.
Shout out.
I owe Steve a beer steal, I think. So that was a joke.
Steve was standing on the sidelines telling everyone how they needed to drive the track.
What tire pressure?
What tire pressures?
Cool.
So Steve was a bit of a local legend.
Steve, I was going to say, Steve's not his real name. We came up with that, by the way.
Oh, Steve's not his real name. Yeah, right.
We just made it up.
His real name.
But there was a fair amount of shit going on over Nagala. When we got there, we ended up in a queue and waiting. What do you reckon? We waited 2 hours?
Hour and a half,
hour and a half.
Hour and a half to get over. I was in front, and in front of me, a couple of cars in front of me, someone had maybe listened to Steve's instructions and dropped their tyre pressure down too low and rolled the tyre off the rim.
Yeah.
So they were well and truly stuck in there. And I think they...
Gee, that must have been down in the single digits to roll a tyre off the rim.
Oh, yeah, well, they were telling people to get it below 10.
Telling everyone to go to 9. Yeah. They were saying 9, 10.
It was soft.
It was very soft.
Wow.
I went to 12 on the way back because it was high tide, and it was almost to the point where you couldn't get much of a run up. You had to time the run up to get back onto Nagala with the waves because you were driving through that sort of wash. So I wanted to make sure we got through as quickly as possible. I wouldn't have liked to go down to 12, but certainly got across without it the first time without any drama. So it's good.
The way back, there was I can't remember what was stuck when we got there, but again, it was another 2-hour wait. But, for those that haven't been, that, think that that's a pain in the ass and, stuff it, we just won't do it. It's part of the fun. Yeah. We pulled up in the queue. There were heaps of people in front of us. There were probably 5 or 6 cars that got bogged in front of us while we were waiting. The original one, instead of coming back and getting rizzed by whoever was back on this side, they decided to go meter at a time with their max tracks. So they were just going, and it took them a couple of hours to get across, and that's what the big hold up was. If they'd come back and got some instruction, they might have been a bit better, but that's just the way it was. The one thing I did notice this time, though, that people were far less interested in helping. There were people stuck, and people were, the next person in line was more than happy to just let them be stuck and wait their turn. Whereas years gone by, the very next person would be the first person up there with the snatch strap to drag them back and try again. That just didn't seem to be happening this time, and maybe it was just a couple of people in front of us were like that. Hopefully it's not turning into that sort of thing, but it's the way it was. But, if you're going to go and do it, but go prepared. If you've got kids, have stuff in the car, set up backyard cricket, kick a ball around. Like we had the ball being biffed around between, 5 groups in cars, having a bit of a game of footy and whatever, and the time went by. If you weren't stuck in the queue, you'd probably be doing the same thing up the beach somewhere. So, if you do that, then you take the stress away, and no one's really worrying too much. Our main concern was that we were battling a tide.
We were running out of beach. It was every time we went forward, it was let's move a little bit closer.
Yeah, that's the trouble, isn't it? That's the real risk, running out of beach.
Yeah.
I think one of the really interesting things this year compared to last year, Jono, was the
current was crazy. That was ridiculous.
Every other year we've done things like drone fishing, live baiting and slide baiting and all those sorts of good fun things. But we just could not anchor, even with multiple grapnel hooks on a single line, anything out, 100 meters. You'd drop it out and you just watch it come around. And 10 minutes later, it's washing up on the beach, which is not a very good place to catch fish. But that was the disappointment about the fishing part of it, I suppose. We still caught fish, but we had goals like we did last year of targeting some bigger things. But the current just killed us.
And I know we spoke to someone at the shop at Orchid Beach, and they said that the wind had been blowing, for a week before we got there. We had 2 days of that wind. And I think it was just really that wind that just caused that current to come through. And it was really, really noticeable how the wind affected the fishing this year. Like last year, whenever we stopped and fished, I mean, we had a little bit of wind, but not much. But whenever we stopped and fished, we caught fish. Whereas this year, we were what was that?
You had to hunt for them this year. Yeah. We really had to work hard on.
Yeah. And it was like we'd be fishing at a spot and the wind would be blowing offshore and we'd be biting. The fish would be biting. We'd be catching, every throw you're getting a bite, the wind would swing onshore and they would just go off the bite. Gone.
That one evening.
It was crazy.
It was bizarre. It was like everyone, there was like, the traditional Fraser, you see 30, 40 people in a row.
Shoulder to shoulder.
The stuff, shoulder to shoulder. And it was like someone turned the light off.
As soon as that wind swung, you felt a change and the fish just went off the bite.
Speaking of light.
Still going.
Endo, for the listeners, I'm going to give you a light report.
Not too hot either.
It has not changed from a lumen's perspective based on my expert opinion, Ian, at all.
Amazing.
It's not that hot.
What do you want me to say?
That was a great report for people that can't see it. It's still bright. We'd even forgotten it was happening.
It's still running at full power. That's full power too.
Impressive.
Huh.
It is. I thought it'd be like 6 minutes at full power because, I mean, it's ridiculously bright.
Sorry, back to that. So, and we also found, we went up and down the sections of beach that we normally go and have a look at, and we just, to start with, couldn't get onto fish. And we were late in the season this time. We were, all the reports on socials were saying that the season had started and basically finished. And I guess I started to believe that until we finally got onto the spot that we got to, which was, right up at Nagala Rocks, and finally started catching some fish, which was good, but it took a lot of effort.
Will you get mainly Taylor or get mixed bag?
I caught first fish I think we caught was a dart.
And the world's biggest flathead.
Yeah.
Well,
oh, yes.
Species 3.
Yeah, true. So Zabe caught a flathead that was probably, 5 mil long?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Tiny ones.
On a hook about this big.
Hook bigger than the fish, yeah.
It was on a treble. Came in, it was still translucent.
Yeah. Dragged it on the bottom, picked through, yeah.
But I mean, the other thing, for those that haven't been up there, Hendo, talk through the rigs and the baits and that sort of stuff. If you haven't done it before, there's really a pretty simple process to follow that we even adapted again this year, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times we are targeting via the drone, But because of the wind or the current this year, we just went back to a very standard setup, which is ultimately a 2 or 3 gang sitting at the end to hold a pilly with a sinker. We either use sometimes the grapnel sinkers just to hold in. Some people call them Sputnik ones. They're just got the little prongs on there, so they hold better in the sand. Sometimes they're good, but I think sometimes also the ball sinker, so there is a bit of movement because the fish do, you'll move into where the fish are rather than just hopefully have the fish come to you. So it's pretty standard. I mean, and we were geared up fairly heavy for, bigger fish. So we were running 45 or 55 sort of pound. That's why I would kill for any tailor. You can do 12 pound, probably with a little bit heavier leader, just because they've got teeth on them. I'd prefer not to run, but I think you were running a trace, a metal trace.
Yeah, I ran a metal trace on one. Yeah, I ran.
Yeah, but you caught as many, or if not more fish than I did. So I just prefer to run sort of 50, 60 pound sort of leader on there, just to ensure that if they don't take it clean on the hooks, you're not going to get bitten off.
I think the tip that people would need to understand, though, is if you're going to go and stand in the crowd, during a really good session and you're wall to wall people or shoulder to shoulder, you can't run a grapple sinker, because the concept is that they throw a running ball sinker with a bait on it and everything drifts together like this. So yours is drifting, but so is everyone else's. If you go and anchor, then all of a sudden someone's going to drift over you, and then there's tangles and everything goes chaotic. For the first few years we were using those grapple sinkers, but because we were drone fishing, we were finding our own spot. You'd find these big groups and you'd set up down further, and we'd drone baits out further and target bigger fish. We then found the crowds came in under us, and it caused a bit of chaos. But by then we'd caught some fish, and we were happy to pack up and take off and leave them to it. This year, moving to that running ball sinker, it allowed us to play in the crowd a bit better, and that's what we had to do this time because it was really the only option.
And so, Hendo, what rig? So, explain the rig you're using for general beach fishing on Taylor or on Fraser for Taylor.
So, big surf rod gives you better casting distance, and you can get some pretty good standard sort of setups from your BCF or Anaconda or whatever. Large reel for extra spool, and again we use that more because we want to be able to then drone with the same rig. Running probably be a 50-pound braid. That's again for the bigger stuff. If you were just targeting Taylor, you could go right down to something like 20 without any drama. Running ball sinker down to a swivel connected to usually a leader, probably 50, 60 sort of pound, up to 80 depending on how the size of the fish, just so they don't bite you off. And a 3-gang sort of hook with a pilly on the end of it. It's very sort of traditional, and a lot of people, it's the Alvy reels that you see a lot of Fraser, but you can do it just as well with a spinner or different types of ones. So, yeah.
So are you guys using spinners or Alvies? Because you're talking about braid, and I've still got a few Alvies, but I've never put braid on Alvies. So are you using thread lines or?
Yeah, spinners always. Yep. I've had Alvies in the past, and they're great because they're unbreakable in the surf and all that sort of stuff. I just find it's easier. You get more control, drag, and that sort of stuff when you're trying to have a single setup to target multiple different species, and that could turn from a 60 centimeter tailor into a 2 meter shark.
So like the 8,000 size, 10,000 size reels, those kind of.
So something that we can put comfortably, 500-600 meters worth of braid on it.
Yeah, so that'd have to be a 10,000. You couldn't get an 8,000, even with the way how small the diameter of braid. You still need some. So that's a big reel.
Yeah. When we're specifically buying, we bought smaller reels to start with for our casting rods, and then we ended up upsizing the reels for our slide baiters.
Yeah,
so the concept was to drop bait out. I mean, we've done all sorts of crazy stuff. We talked about slide baiting out a can of cat food and stabbing holes in it so that you could leak it out and get the smell. You could still drag the can back in later, so that's all fine. The idea of slide baiting is you anchor that big one out there, catch a tailor, hook it in behind the neck. Hook it in behind the neck. Adam, who came on the Operation Venison session with us, is a pretty gun fisherman, and he gave us a few tips. And one of the tips was don't double hook your live baits. A lot of people will hook them through the behind the head and then through the tail just to keep them straight. He said that'll kill a tailor pretty fast. So he said just hook it in behind the head with a number 10 hook, I think it was, and then just slide it down the line. So you just put it on a special thing so it can't come backwards, and it just jigs itself down the line. And I think the first one of those we put out last year, John, you were off for a 2-kilometre run with a shark. It just happened like that. It was just and off you went.
That's it.
And
That's
you know, when you're
weather.
putting on a tailor, which you'd be pretty happy most days to take home. I mean, this thing was 50 centimetres. We'd caught enough fish that we didn't need any more tailor last year. And I remember put it out, and I went back to grab my other rod to just cast some more, and my rod that was sitting in the holder just went down to the sand and started getting dragged to the ocean. We were camped probably about 1 kilometre up from Nagala.
Yeah.
I think by the time you jumped in your car and found me, I was practically at Nagala with this poor tailor
Just
being
walking the
dragged
beach.
around by quite a large shark. It was it was good fun. But you know, that's the sort of stuff we're trying to target for some of that bigger
So
gear.
the drone will carry out a 50 centimetre tailor.
No,
No,
so
the tailor goes out on the slide line.
Oh, okay. Sure, I understand.
So
yeah.
all we're
So
dropping
you're
out on the
you're
slide
dropping the
line
slide weight
is
out,
the
and,
sninkers.
and it's just going. Yeah, I understand. Yep.
So the drone could carry out about 750 grams. Probably push your luck if you had really good weather. But that's a reasonable amount of lead to be able to just anchor out 300 or 400 meters and then just let the fish go and do its thing.
Yeah.
That was the concept. There was a wreck that we found. So we discovered it. We didn't discover the wreck. Well-known wreck. But we didn't know it was there last year. And it's right at the northern entrance to
Orchid Beach.
Orchid Beach Township. Just as you get to the track that goes up to the township, 300 meters offshore is a wreck, which would have been an awesome spot to drop baits onto, because it would have had a bunch of reef fish and bits and pieces out there as well. But again, the current just didn't make it work for us this year, so we'll have another crack next year.
So when you're in the typical Fraser Island stack for tailor, and everyone's, if they're doing it right and they're walking backward nicely when they hook up and sliding in and out, and everyone's working together. Are you still seeing a lot of Alvies over there, or is everyone into?
Oh, it's a good mix. The traditional tailor fishermen will be using Alvies. I use an Alvie as my tailor setup, so I've got an Alvie rod, Alvie reel with 30-pound mono on it. I don't use braid on my Alvie. With the traditional setup, with the ball sinker down to a leader, I use. I've got a steel tracer mine. You don't really need it if you've got a good strong leader. With the gang hooks that we use, I use either 2-gang or a 3-gang. I think I probably would have got bitten off once or twice, but most of the time a gang will suffice. But I like using the Alvies. I think they're good fun. There's good control. I have got a big, heavier setup that I use for the slide baiting. So that's hooked up. I think I've got an 8,500 reel on that, and I've got about 600 meters of braid, 50-pound braid on that with a nice big heavy leader. I don't even think I used it this year. That's a new rod. We just didn't have the opportunity this year. I mean, I did a lot of tailor fishing. I fished every morning, every evening with the crowds up at Nagala. I'd say it was probably a 60-40 split of Alvies to spinning reels. A lot of guys were spinning this year, I found. A lot of spinners. The one morning.
But also a lot of spinners with sewing slugs, which is something
they were casting.
And the big thing that I noticed this year was these guys came in, I think it was the second or third morning we were up at Nagala, and we were all catching fish. I mean, the fish were really, the tailor were biting. These guys came in with these big lures. They weren't slugs. They were almost like big Rapala type lures, and they were huge. They were really big, like this, and they were pink. And they were every cast they were catching fish, and they were just walking in on top of us and just catching fish. So I think John, you went up and had a quick look at what they were. I need to pop into the local tackle shop and try and identify them, because they absolutely smashed the fish with them. It was crazy.
But then I saw exactly the same guys one of their next mornings, who then after 20 minutes changed to.
So it shows you how it changes.
So
was the big lure with the small bib?
No, they were hard bodies. They were hard bodies.
Yeah, but did they have a small bib on them or a long bib?
I don't think they had much of a lip on them at all.
Yeah.
It'd be almost what you'd use for
Pretty much,
jigging.
Yeah.
It looked almost like that, and they were almost running those two singles.
I was going to say, were they running singles on them? Yeah.
They were. I caught one.
If I went out to the shed, I could show you one.
Yeah.
Got a couple in the shed, yeah.
I caught one Taylor jigging.
It's
still bright.
Yeah.
It's still bright. Still going.
I know which ones you mean. Do you want me to go get it?
Yeah, go. Take your talk.
No, I'll leave.
No, take it so that we can see that the room actually goes dark when you remove the light. It still looks like the light's on above you.
Yeah, well, it's because of the screen.
Yeah.
So I'll do this. Do they look like a bigger version of that?
Yeah, that's got a bib at the front, hasn't it?
No.
So it's not a driver.
They were like hard bodies. That would. I reckon that would work.
That's hard. So yeah. So that's a hard. I just put a treble on that, but they came with two singles.
They look, and again, I didn't get real close up to it, and Johnny, you might have seen better. You know what a blade is, Mark?
Yep.
Yeah, so they more look like a blade in terms of that thinner profile to me.
Yeah.
With, like I said, like a deep drop jig type sort of setup. But, you know, I was just driving past trying to get an idea because they'd been John had told me how effective they were.
So when I spoke to the guys, he said to me he went to Jones Tackle, Mark, your favourite fishing shop.
Yep.
And said, what's going to catch Taylor? And he said, you need to buy these. And apparently they were $50 each because he told me specifically they were $50 each. And they absolutely killed the Taylor on that morning. I know a day or two later they didn't work, but I think that's when the wind swung and it was really getting tough. I don't think much came out after that. But certainly that morning they killed the fish.
Yeah. I think so. They're really not much of a diver at all, though.
Look, there wasn't much water when we were fishing.
Yeah, that's it. So they'd have either no bib or hardly any bib on them. So hardly go in. They wouldn't dive at all.
And I think we were fortunate enough. Morning and evening were high tides. Progressively getting later during the day.
That's nice.
Most mornings we'd be up, 4:30, 5 o'clock latest, and then on the beach for the high tide. And that was a really productive session. And then by the last night, it was sort of high tide was a couple of hours after dark, so it was getting a bit tougher. But it was quite. We had a pretty good weather, but tide window, I think, for most of the stay we're over there with that morning bite, which was good.
Yeah, the only thing about that was when we decided we want to go up to Sandy Cape and fish the gutter right at the point. There was no water. There was no water. Like we had this experience twice while we were there. Last time we went up there. We got up the top, went early morning, and we waited for high tide to come and go. Well, high tide had gone this time, so when we got up there, it was low tide, and it was just a sand flat. It was quicksand and little pools of water.
It was great for the kids. The kids absolutely loved it.
Yeah,
kids loved it. Yeah, they were in the water. They were in these little pools of water and finding crabs and all sorts of stuff. So they had a great time. And it was the same when we went over to the west. We were raving about how amazing it was over
wasn't it?
With Thumba. It's beautiful white sands and crystal clear water, and we get over there and it's a mud flat. Because the tide was out. We had a completely different experience. But again, kids being kids, they're like, oh, cool mud. We'll go and find crabs and all sorts of
kids were chasing the soldier crabs when the tide started coming in, they built a big dam and it was awesome. Like no matter what the tide was, the kids just had fun and we just waited until the evening and then we went fishing. So it was really good.
I mean, you guys have been talking about, Ian, you were saying like get there and have a go. So if someone's listening, they want to have a go. So explain the setup you guys take, vehicles and things like that.
Yeah, so every year it gets better and better, and you add to it, right? So what we've got now is not necessarily what you need, but using John's Prado as an example, we were saying before, it's a bog standard Prado, bought for this purpose. John started coming hunting, a few years ago, and we've been going up to Fraser a little bit, and even out to Bribey drone fishing. And you were always in my car, and you decided it was time to be a bit more self-sufficient, so you could go when I didn't want to, and take your girls and all that sort of stuff. So picked up the Prado, and it's a champion of a vehicle. Like, it's got plenty of space and does its thing, but maybe run through the mods that you put in it for this trip, because it's its first trip up. We've done a few little modifications, not to the car itself, but to accessorize, just to make things function for us.
I think first purchase was probably Max Tracks and a recovery kit for a snatch and a few sort of recovery points. Everyone should have them. Hopefully you never use them. But internally, I think the main thing, because I wanted to put a fridge in it as well, was having a second battery system. That was pretty simple to do. I like doing that sort of stuff myself, because then if anything breaks, I know generally where to look. So I've got just a DC converter that runs into a second battery, sits in a battery box. So it's then easy with an Anderson plug to just take it in and out of the car if I don't need it, or as we used the battery box to run sort of the camp shower one night, just easy to sort of move. I think that sort of setup is really beneficial, because we're up there for 6 nights. Having the ability then to, charge it as we drove around, or plug in a solar blanket to be able to keep that topped up. Because I ran a fridge as a freezer for all of our stuff we wanted to keep frozen. Ian ran a fridge as a fridge, which just meant we had last night's frozen pizzas for dinner, for example. It was pretty easy from a food perspective. Otherwise, it's pretty stock standard, other than I did also put a Tow Pro on it, just so if it was in the scenario, for example, if Ian couldn't, and I just, want to tow him out one day, or tow his camper out if he gets stuck or something like that. Plus I've got, from a non-camping side, there's a few times when I want to be able to, carry some things behind where you want those electric brakes and stuff like that. But otherwise, it's fairly stock standard, other than the last row of seats have been taken out. So most Prados are 7 seats. I don't need that. I wanted the storage space, so I ripped those last ones out, and there's just a sort of box where I've got a, pretty standard King's drawer set on one side, which the fridge sits on top, and the other side's just storage. So other than that, mate, few little things like a compressor, but again, we're talking a $90 compressor, which has worked for 4 or 5 years now without any sort of drama. That recovery sort of stuff, and some basic things like first aid kit, just it's on hand. A few sort of tools so you can do some basic troubleshooting, things like a voltmeter or a test light or something like that if you need to. Some pretty basic stuff. I'm not a mechanic by any means. If it's past a certain point, I'd call in the experts, but just basic sort of stuff. And I've done Fraser with it, and all the way through Nagala, run up to Sandy Cape, and never even thought about having a problem, right?
And what about your camp setup?
I'm fortunate that most of the time I am with Ian, which means I've got access to a kitchen in the camper trailer. So I run a
coffee machine.
Yeah, coffee machine and whatever I need. But honestly, it's a Instant Up 4-person tent. This year I bought a new one because the other one just died after many years of use in different sort of abusive ways, to one of the blackout ones, which was quite good for some of those occasional mornings where we did sleep in and didn't do that early morning fish. Blow up. No, we agreed that one morning I didn't. But the last morning we all agreed to have a sleep in. Ian didn't come any morning, so you can't.
He did really... 1 morning. Two mornings he did.
2 mornings.
No.
I had a 5-year-old boy that didn't want to get out of bed, and I couldn't just leave him there for the dingoes to chew on. So
he was a trooper. He really was.
He was a trooper, but I made a deal with him that we would go every second morning.
I was just deflecting from Jono, so it's all right. It worked. But to answer your sort of question, Mark, inside the tent, literally I chuck a bag of clothes. I've got a blow-up mattress, which I, love sleeping on, to be honest. Some basic bedding, a sleeping bag that will do me for over the top on sort of warm nights at Fraser or in the Maybole camp at -2. So pretty basic sort of stuff. Because I'm fortunate enough to have some of those sort of other amenities that Ian brings with the camper.
And I think the thing maybe not to skimp on too much in your scenario is that solar blanket.
Yeah.
Like, don't go too small. The solar is what you need for keeping your fridge charged. Yeah, it gets a charge off the car, but some days you're not going that far. So making sure you've done your calculations on solar and you've got enough of it. Apparently, and I haven't verified this, you can't just buy two of them and plug them in together. Two solar controllers in the same circuit don't do good things to each other. Apparently, you can string together multiple panels into one controller. You can't run two controllers at the same time.
Yeah, well, look at your house roof. You can have multiple panels across multiple arrays, but you still have a single inverter. The same scenario.
Right.
It makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, you were keeping. What size is your fridge?
40
litre or something like that.
So you can't.
And you kept it running at -14 for a week.
Yeah.
You're saying you can't run two controllers in series.
So you could have two panels or two blankets connected to a single controller.
Well, no. Yes, right. You can't have controllers running in series.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you break, but you break stuff.
But to be honest, rolling out one of those fold-out 300 watt or 250 watt sort of blankets, chucking it in the sun during the day when we weren't out, never had to really worry about.
So I had a 300 watt blanket. I was actually testing it, and I was hitting an average 250 to 260 watts that I was pulling through that blanket.
Pretty amazing, eh?
Yeah.
That is a massive amount of power to be.
So, are you charging your battery, or
no?
You
So
I've got
your
battery. Are you isolating your battery whilst you're running off?
So I've got
solar?
Two AGM 100 amp hour batteries in my camper trailer, and then I charge that when I'm driving. I charge that through a DC controller. But otherwise, when we're set up at camp, I've got a 300 watt blanket that I then plug in, and I've got a MPPT controller that then charges those batteries during the day.
Okay.
So during the day, I'm in my camper. I've got a 75 liter dual zone that I've actually got a fridge and freezer that we're running. So we run one half as a freezer, one half as a fridge. Plus the kids are charging iPads. We're running lights in the evenings, and I didn't run out of power. But that 300 watt blanket makes a big difference.
That is the difference, because you wouldn't be doing that without the blanket. And I'm the same. I've got two 120s in the camper, and I've got a small solar panel that just keeps them topped up during the day. I'm not isolating the batteries, Mark, to answer your question. I'm feeding the batteries all the time and drawing at the same. So it's all.
So you can draw as well as charge at the same time.
Yeah. So all you got to do with these things is I just plug the solar panel into the Anderson plug. That is what I would normally plug into the car when we're driving. It just plugs in there. There's other spots to plug it in, but that's where I put it. I don't use my camper to run my fridge. I keep the fridge in the car, so I've got a spare battery box set up the same as what Hendo was talking about. And this year, I mounted a solar panel on the roof rack. That's the first time I've done that. I've always wanted to have it like that, just because. Usually I'm lazy when I get back to camp and I can't be bothered doing stuff. So I crack a beer and sit down and have a laugh, and all of a sudden I've wasted 3 hours of sunlight that I haven't pumped through a solar panel. So I wanted it fixed and plugged in all the time. And again, we had one day where we had an issue with not quite enough power into the battery. Didn't stop the fridge, but we noticed it was getting down. And that was just because I had the plugs around the wrong way, and fixed that up pretty quickly. One of the things we have been using are the little battery power meters that you connect up to your battery, and then you can monitor what's going on an app on your phone. So just Bluetooth to your phone, you can see how much input's going in, and you can see how what the health of your battery is. It can send you alerts if you've got problems. My battery box has got a monitor on it, so I can just look in the boot and I can see it. Whereas Hendo's doesn't have that, so it's solely reliant on this app to know what the battery health was looking like. So that's a really handy little thing. I think you can pick them up at PCFs and places like that for under $100, and they just connect onto your battery. I think they're a great.
I think my memory from Super Cheap was like $40.
I think my fridge actually can talk to my phone.
My fridge can, so I can monitor.
So I just jump straight in. But I run in the back of the truck. I run everything through a dedicated box, and it's got a battery. It's got a monitor on that, so where everything plugs in there's a monitor there, and it's quite it's a nice bright. And of course the fridge itself has got the readout on it, but there's a monitor on that, so you can tell what your voltage is at. And the fridge you can also set to trip, so it won't. You can say don't draw below 12 volt. So the fridge won't flatten things. The fridge will actually go into hibernate or turn off mode. So it won't flatten your batteries, which is really, because with the my old one, you basically eventually you'd flatten the battery, you'd run it out.
Yeah.
This one, the fridge, you can set it don't go below 12. So
you can get some pretty elaborate battery setups.
Yeah,
I'd love to do more, but at the end of the day, I run the fridge. It connects to solar and it connects to the alternator, and I've got spare ports to run other things. It does it really well. The size of the boot and the Patrol, it's so big that I can put the fridge. Once the fridge is in on the fridge slide, I've got room for the battery box behind still. So it just tucks away nicely. It does everything I want it to do. So I wouldn't change much of that. There's a few other luxuries that you can get that certainly help. Getting a good tire pressure gauge and system just for deflating and inflating is really handy. We ended up buying some of those little gimmicky things. You see them on Facebook all the time, or wherever it is that you muck around on socials. The little devices that you just screw onto your the valves, and they're preset to whatever PSI you want. I run those; they're great. You can just run around and put them on, and all of a sudden you're down to 20 PSI and you're off.
The little deflators that you set.
You get Storm ones, you get a couple other brands, but they work. They're brilliant.
Yeah, I've actually got some really good ones that I got years ago that you set them to 14 and then you just screw them on and everything goes down.
But Jono, what was that digital thing you were running around? Was that yours
mine.
Or mixed? Because that
this is a digital tire pressure gauge.
It's a little reader.
It
didn't deflate.
I thought
you can use them to deflate.
What Jono was doing was he was putting it up and measuring it, and then sticking his finger on the valve and letting it down. It looked like it was doing it all.
I've got one that's like a stopwatch. And it's
but that's got a manual gauge on it. It's not digital. Oh, okay.
No, it's a digital.
I don't have that.
It's a digital, and it's just got a bleed valve.
No, this doesn't have a bleed valve.
You can put it on and just watch it go.
I thought you were actually going and saying, "Okay, I want this 12 psi." Just put it on.
Just a
gauge.
gauge.
Comes.
It looked like that.
Yeah. I've got the mechanical.
Storm
brand.
I've got them. Yeah.
Storm brand, the little mechanical ones, and you just literally go to your mechanic, say set these at 14 pounds for me, and PSI, sorry. And
that's what I use.
And then they're set. And you just screw them on and it all goes down.
And certainly having a compressor was a good idea because, when you run up over Nagala, there were people dropping them below 10. I think a lot of us had them around 16 or something like that, running up and back. But you don't want to be running down the hard sand, at 12 PSI. So, you're pulling over, you're getting those compressors out, you're pumping the tyres back up again. There are people that won't do that, and there'll be people that tell us they don't bother. But tyres aren't cheap, and looking after them, you don't want to roll them off rims and things like that. So, having that, I'm lucky enough that I installed a compressor in the car. It runs the airbags, so I can, when I'm towing, I can pump the airbags up to suit whatever I'm towing. But as a byproduct of that, I was able to put an output so that I had an onboard
carry some
compressor.
extra fuses.
Yeah, I blew a fuse. Oh, right.
How much was they?
Get this. Not that I want to bag the shops over on Fraser. They do a bloody awesome job at keeping things stocked up. There is a thing called island tax because things got to get freighted up there. But I think was it a 40 amp fuse? You could buy a packet of 4 of them. What did we see? 4 of them for like $8.
Yeah. Oh.
I paid $20 for one. For one. They got you. They know,
and they asked for it back.
Yeah, that's right. When you finish, can I have it back? So you do pay the tax, and to that point, I was on the Fraser site today, and people are like, "Oh, I want to do this, this, and this. Will I use a tank of fuel, or do I have to take fuel? Because I don't want to pay the price." I'm like, "Yeah." It was $300. It was $3.
It was $3.40 for diesel.
$40.
Yeah.
It was $3.20 for 95 unleaded.
Yeah.
There you go.
But on the fuel thing,
it's worth just pay for it. Like it's such a minor increase in cost on the scheme of your whole holiday. You're not going to be carrying fuel around, spilling stuff. You're not going to get sand in your tank. Just don't muck around with it. It's so much easier just to buy it.
Just to jump in, and you guys were both carrying trailers, so you filled up. To give you an idea, like I said, my stock Prado, no extended tank or anything like that. I filled up at Rainbow before we left. I did the entire island with everything we did. I jumped in Ian's car when we crossed to Wathumba, but we did a bunch of day trips. We did up through Nagala, up to the Cape, all the way back. I then drove back to Toowoomba. I actually filled up the first time yesterday since we went, guys.
Yeah, but
back for 2 weeks.
That's
for 2 weeks, for a week.
Prado's running 120 tank because Prado's do have a big
tank.
Yeah,
diesel.
that's a big tank.
But
I mean, that's almost twice. That's a bit more, not exactly, but that's nearly twice the size of what Jono runs, for instance.
But there was that many equivalent cars up there, and for people out there who do have those sorts of size tanks, you'd still potentially be able to do it on a tank without too much drama if you're worried about spending $350 on, fuel and stuff like that. But I agree still with Ian. You're there and you just got to...
If you don't support those local stores, they're not going to be able to survive. They're going to go away.
They'll go away.
100%.
So we bought fuel. We put in $100 or $120. We probably put in about $200 worth of fuel on the island because we needed to. We were towing a camper trailer. We did lots of day trips, but I wasn't going to carry 50, 100 liters of fuel up with me. I just put it on the island. Pay the
spilling. You've already had spillage problems on these trips, John. I imagine if it was fuel and not your dunny.
Yes, we.
I probably bought $200 on ice creams. So
yeah, that's right. I was saying to Hendo one of the days. I said, imagine if you did how funny it would be if you did a P&L on your holiday, and one of the highest items on the list was ice cream, because at $8 each, and a fairly healthy 6-year-old that was demanding them,
there and back
fairly frequently.
So what you're saying, if you really wanted to have fast savings, you would have gone to Hendo before you come up, turn the freezer on, go to Coles, buy 4 packs of drumsticks.
Well,
you would have saved a truckload of money.
I could have made money, Mark.
Yeah, that's right. You could have said, it's $5.
It was $8 at the shop.
That's what I mean. You're going to pull it outside the shop and cut them out.
Well, we took a pack of Super Dupers in our freezer, and the kids, and I think all of us had Super Dupers.
Yeah.
When we were setting up camp and when we were packing down camp, because we could keep them frozen, and how refreshing. And the kids loved them. They come back from a hot day on the beach to have a nice cold Super Duper. Got a freezer and a good battery system, you can do it.
Yeah, that's the point, right? A few luxuries and you have an excellent experience. You don't have to want for much. Yeah. And talking about the tech in camp, shout out to our buddies at Frontier Voice and Data here in Toowoomba. They came along with us. So by the time we'd set up camp, we had Selfie Go's humming and Starlink antennas up, and everything was going. We could talk to anyone. Most importantly, the Rugby World Cup's been on, so we were pretty keen to tune into that. But yeah, it was pretty good.
When you've got a Chromecast in camp.
Oh, we had a movie up on the side of the. Yeah, we had a movie game for the kids.
Yeah, the projector.
On the projector, it was awesome.
Yeah. The other thing, while we're talking about gear, people worry about, again, their cars and whether they're capable. one of the most common questions you see on the pages is, I've got a bog standard, whatever, can it make it? At the end of the day, if you've got a four-wheel drive type vehicle, be it a Ute or a Prado or bigger, they're going to do it. Stop, no problem. If you're worried about tyres, I think road tyres do it better than any other tyre. You don't have to worry about getting all-terrains or any of those sorts of things. They just dig you into holes. Yeah, if you've got them, fine, don't change them off. But, John, you had road tyres. They're probably nearly at the end of their life, road tyres. And they were fine. They don't dig in, so they don't get you bogged. So pretty much the stock family, the vehicle's going to do it.
Well, do you remember the car that I bought up 2 or 3 years before that? My granddad's 1982 Nissan Pathfinder.
Yeah.
And didn't get bogged once. I dragged you, as I remember, out of a hole when you had your Ranger. Well, that was on Bribey, not Fraser, but, there's a lot of capable cars. It's
I
as
think,
hard as people think.
I think tyre, it's sand, tyre pressure is everything, because you're just increasing your footprint. That's all it does. It just makes the tyre wider. It's less likely to dig in terms of weight distribution. But I think that's important in because the trouble with Fraser is, one, it's a fair way away, so it's it's a journey in itself, and the whole socials are there's I got bogged.
Freak people out.
I got bogged at Inskip Point.
Don't get us started on that one.
And it's just there's just this continuous 24 loop of people getting stuck there at Inskip Point. So I think that that puts the frighteners in people, but it's generally when you're on the beach, it's the transition points where you get stuck. Once you're on the hard pack,
Oh, and if you get the tires right as well, like we were driving on solid.
Yeah.
Solid road.
It's like a road.
But conversely, you get those wrong, and you're in a world of pain.
Oh yeah, well,
you're going to be in a world of pain. So there's 3 things.
The sea is not particularly forgiving of your.
It's not your friend. There's 3 things that make your driving easier. We've talked about pressures. Pressures is absolutely number 1. Momentum's really important, and patience is the other one. Just be patient. You don't need to be cutting people off. You don't. On the way out at Inskip Point, it was just how many cars were waiting.
Barges full.
Barges full.
Yeah.
100 plus cars sitting there waiting to get through. Just because what had happened was, when you come out, it comes down to close 2 lanes. But some people had parked there and half blocked one of the lanes. So people were coming down, people were going out, and they were having to stop and give way. And when they were stopping, they got bogged down.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there was lots of cars. So people were taking both tracks to go out, and they were bottlenecking here. And there were cars still coming this way trying to get the last ferries onto the island. It was a patience thing. But the hardest thing about all that, Nagala and at Inskip, is there's no common radio channel sign to say, hey, get on this channel. I had a chat to one of the guys at the council once and said, why don't you just put a sign up that says,
everyone travel on 26 or something?
Use channel 40. And I think the main reason for that is if they start to put signs up telling people what channel to be on, they're assuming some sort of responsibility for what happens. Which
not everyone has one.
No, they don't, but most people.
It's one of those sorts of things, though, in terms of if you can get one, if you're in a group, geez, it makes a difference.
Oh, yeah.
Just for coordination, shit talking as well.
Well, I mean, I still run CBs in 4-wheel drives, because and we use it whenever we go out west because we talk to other vehicles. I'm not talking to, we're not smoking the bandit type thing. We just, there's a road trainer or there's a farmer moving a huge piece of machinery. You actually communicate with that person. Come on through, guys. You come. That's that kind of thing. And so it's strange that there isn't an agreement of, if you're on Fraser, be on 40 or 26 or something like that.
Yeah. It's a bit of a shame because it would make things a lot smoother.
You just call people through. I'm clear, come through type thing.
Yeah. The other thing that I'll say, and we've mentioned this more than once, and that is how much easier it was having the Zolio 2-way communicator again.
Definitely.
different purpose this time. Last time we were using it for mapping. This time we used it a little bit for maps. Coming back along the beach in the dark, you've got no idea where your camp is, and being able to just have that pin on the Zolio made things really easy. And a lot of the places that you go up there, you don't have service coverage, so we can keep in contact with each other. We split up right at the beginning. We ended up on the first barge, heading over, and Jono and family, I think they might have been about to get out of bed as we drove past.
I was out of bed. The family
that morning.
I was out of bed. The family wasn't.
You had to manage a family. I get it. It's all right. The girls like to sleep in, and so we were off and running well before these guys, but we could see where each other were on the map. I knew that he was in the queue at Inskip. I knew he'd managed to get through Inskip because I could see he'd moved past that point. I didn't have to worry about it. I didn't have to think, I wonder if he's made it, any of that sort of stuff. It was just easy to watch. I knew when he was on the barge. I knew he was catching me up. We were driving at 60. Had a couple of new fellas behind us that weren't too comfortable on the sand. Jono was obviously pushing along a bit faster than that, and he managed to catch up nearly. And then when we found camp first. It's not easy to find a camp for that many people, but when we found one, we were able to just say, hey, just come to this point. We found a camp for everyone. And it just takes all of that stress away again. So, yeah, it was really...
Yeah,
really
it was like, I mean, we were driving up. We got across... We left probably, half an hour, 45 minutes. I think we were probably on the third or fourth barge over. And then we were driving up along the beach, and I could see that Ian actually messaged me saying that they had stopped at... I think he stopped at Yurong or something like that to grab some breakfast. Yeah, and so we were driving along, and I could see that and I could calculate we were probably between 12 and 18 minutes behind him, because I could see the number of, because we had a 6-minute breadcrumb going, so I could see and he was 2 breadcrumbs ahead of me, so I knew that was 6-minute intervals, so we were between 18 and 12 minutes behind him, which we could, and I could see that we were cruising up, but then we stopped at Mahino. And had the kids wanted to have a look around and get some photos, and Mick had never seen it before and things like that. But I could track where we were in relation to Ian. And then we stopped at, I think, we stopped at Rainbow, and you carried on. And you said, I've dropped a pin. This is where camp is. We came down the hill, driving along the beach. I could see me coming up to the pin, and I could stop. And there's Ian waiting over there. And he said, here we go. There's camp. It was awesome. It was really, really good.
If you're on the sidelines, go to the website. Click on it, go and have a look at it, buy one. There's so many people getting them now. It's great. Like, lots of people are messaging now saying, got my Zolio, and we're off and running. It's great. I think it's a really great evolution of communication and
still going.
EPIRBs. Yeah, that's unreal. Anyway, last subject on Fraser, I think, dingoes. Endo?
We've been 5 years in a row, and I think, and I don't know why, but this year was very different from a dingo perspective. Lot more, no sort of bad incidents where I think we were worried about it, but we certainly had lots of visits. I think Jono, the amount of stuff they managed to get in. I mean, you wouldn't think they'd be able to get into a Dominic, cooler box, but they've apparently learned how to open them.
Yeah, they open the rubber tabs and flip them over and hook in.
Jumping on tables. They were jumping on. You had them jump on your swag to get
up on the back. I had one. These big off-road campers. Often you see them. They've got 2 big spare wheels on the back. I had them up on the top of those spare wheels.
With a trench.
They know what they're doing.
And this is the first year we'd actually seen someone in trouble. Jono and I, we did a morning fish, and we're coming back, and you're in front of me, and I remember you started pulling off to the left and slowing down, and we saw these 2 ladies. And they were doing all the right things. They had the sticks, so in a pair. They weren't running, but they were actually bailed up to probably knee height in the ocean with this dingo, also, fairly deep in the water, approaching them. We beat the horns and sort of drove towards them, and moved the dingo on, and I gave the girls a lift home because they were just up the beach. But I'd never seen anything like that. So obviously, whatever's changed on the island around their natural sort of food or the amount they've got there, it's very different. And then we've had dingoes in camp before, but they were every night trying to get into stuff. everyone had an incident where they managed to get into a box or a bin or whatnot.
We were being really careful. We were bagging our rubbish, taking it away from camp every time we left. You know, at night time, we were taking those bags, putting them on the back of the ute, closing them up. We were never leaving that stuff out. But for them to be able to flip the tabs on an esky and run off with my bag of potatoes,
we had one actually open a jar of Nutella.
Suck down a bottle of olive oil. And that thing would have had the runs for a week.
That's right. It's been well
Like a bottle of olive oil and was drank it all.
Yeah, stole a sack of onions. Didn't eat them, but stole them and ate a box of Nutrigrain.
Yeah, bread. They like the bread they got out of Phil's camp.
We got selective though. They stole our bread from a few days ago that was a bit stale, and they didn't bother eating all that.
Well, we had one steal a bag of pillies. They managed to open the esky, get their snout, and actually open the esky, grab a bag of pillies, and run off with it. They're smart.
But this is 9:00 at night. There's 4 of us sitting around in camp having a beer. Your camp was like 10 meters away from where we're sitting. And we heard this noise, and then you shine across, and there's literally this dingo with a bag of pillies stolen out of an icebox that was closed, running away.
On the ute.
Yeah. You can't, I mean, I don't worry about them too much, but, you know, you've always got to be sort of wary. But, you know, just we were doing, like you said, Ian, everything right. But you just got to be, you know, put everything away and put something heavy on it.
Or ratchet straps around your wrist.
Well, we had a lockbox of the food, which is what we did, which is a new one this year, which worked. But you can't have those little rubber latches. You got to have proper.
No, I was thinking like, you know, the Pelicans that have the metal levers. And if you do take something like a rubberized one, you need to get some kind of reopenable. Actually, I'm just thinking of just throwing a heap of them out because we had them in the cupboard. You know, those things that you used to have for kids to stop them from opening cupboards.
Things, yeah.
Oh yeah.
All I did was put a ratchet strap on the bait box so they couldn't open it. That's what I did after they stole the pillies.
Yeah. You had one chew up your fishing reel, didn't you, Hinder?
I know. Yeah. I mean, I don't know why, but one of the reels that we left out, he decided to chew the handle off it.
Guess it probably smelled like fish, mate. Probably smell like bait.
Yeah. Anyway, we had lots of dingo encounters, lots of good ones, like the Skyline ones on the sand dunes and things like that. There was some pretty epic views of things. Oh, and the other thing this year, the whales.
Everywhere.
The whales were spectacular.
That was cool.
I've never seen such a display. Yeah. So normally you see them breach and smash down in the water. You know, we had them with their tails up in the air, waving and splashing. We figured that they were smacking schools of fish or something. That's sort of what we thought it was. You know, lots of big, long side fins, footers, whatever you want to call them. Waving, like lots of really cool displays of whales.
Plus, we heard that one calling. Do you remember up at the Cape? We actually heard one. We were on the shore, and there was one. There was a bit of a reef, a couple 100 meters off, and we could actually hear the whale calling. It was or singing, whatever.
And both on the east and western side. I've never seen them across on the west. That was pretty cool. The one across at Wathumba that was out there, or a couple of them out there playing for a good 10 minutes. I mean, you're talking breaching, slapping, tails, and all that sort of stuff. And they're not that far away. That was pretty special. Some of that sort of stuff. It was really cool.
That was good.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about it, Fraser's a good place to go. Good family thing. If you've got any questions about it, sing out. More than happy to help. We may not be going next year because we're going back to the territory. So it may be a year off. We'll see. We'll try.
I'm still going to try and squeeze in next year.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
We've got to organise a bribey trip soon, guys. So
yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. Well, if anyone wants to learn how to drone fish, come along for a bribey day.
I don't have a drone fishing rod and reel, but I could in 10 minutes I could have one. Well, certainly got the gear. I've got the gear. I just haven't got it set up for that. But that wouldn't be hard to. Are you using when you drone fish? Are you still using surf rods, or are you going the smaller rods?
No, surf rods.
Oh well, I don't even worry about that.
Mark, I can turn your normal rig into a drone setup in about 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, I've got 3 or 4, from 10'6" up to 13 foot
Perfect.
with
All you need.
8,000 steel
All you
reel.
need.
Yeah.
The
Got
reason
that.
we're trying to get we want the height above the waves because
Yeah.
the waves ultimately.
Oh, I'm thinking of Bribey.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Bribey.
Yeah. Well, we'll throw this out there. If you're interested in coming for a drone fish and a day on Bribey, jump on the website, go to the contact section, flick us a message. We'll put you on the list.
Yeah.
And if you want to come down for the day and get your car bogged and
If you time Bribey right, it's actually you got to try hard.
You'd be surprised how many people get stuck.
Bogged one. Oh no! At that churn there, that's where you see the bog there. At that churn there, where when you literally come off the road.
Yeah,
that's often where you see and I haven't seen too many people bogged on the inland track. It's hard.
It gets soft up there.
It goes soft, but you don't seem to get people get bogged. They just kind of
I've seen a few get bogged.
Power through.
And I saw pigs along the track
through.
last time I went through.
And about a million kangaroos.
Yeah. Anyway, there's the offer. If you want to come, jump on the website, contact form, send us a message. We'll put you on the list. We're going to have a fun day on Bribey, drone fishing, and whatever else happens. Chasing pigs. It's good fun. Chasing, but not shooting.
Yeah.
Is that us? We're all good?
That's it.
I reckon that's us.
All right, Hendo, you can take us out?
That's right.
On the spot again.
How's the light going?
I'm very impressed.
I'm very impressed.
What are we at now? Hour and 40. Let's run at full power. That's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
I know you want to wrap it up, but what sort of batteries it actually got? Is it those sort of larger rechargeable ones?
Look, I'm going to turn the light on.
I can't see otherwise.
And
well, that's made a huge difference.
Well, see that it's still. I'm not running high power at all, so it runs.
And that was on its highest setting.
That was the highest setting, and that's the battery it runs. And that battery's not. It's barely warm.
Can you hold it up again? Come over to the center in front of you.
How many amp hours? 6,500.
I haven't got my glasses on. Mate.
That's a massive battery.
That's a big battery.
You were thinking of these ones, mate.
6,500.
That's what I was thinking.
6,500 3.7 volt. But the good thing about it too is I was actually thinking while we're sitting here, because they come with this nifty little because that's magnetic. They come with these little magnetic hooks. That'd be a pretty good campfire.
Mm.
On flood. That'd be a pretty good campfire.
Does it pop down and give you the lantern like some of their stuff does?
No, it doesn't do that. But I mean, as I said, all you need is there's a magnetic hook, and that's a pretty good campfire.
All right, enough on the light.
It's just warm. It's not like.
Cool. Well, Mark and Jono, it's been absolutely fantastic, and we are now wrapping up this version of the Hunters Campfire podcast, featuring Hendo and good memories from both Fraser and the Slam. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks, mate.
Good stuff, man. Thanks for joining us.
Good work, mate. Good job. Could be something in it for you.